and who defines us. Ours is a continent that is home to some of the most spectacular scenes that nature bestowed on this planet. Our continent has every mineral that mankind desires, and whichever one that is required to run a modern economy. Paradoxically, Africa also happens to be the poorest continent. Africa has been called many names throughout the ages: dark, beleaguered, a scar on the conscience of the world, hapless and hopeless are some of the more frequent and colorful ones that can be repeated in decent company, until the recent dramatic intervention of US President Donald J. Trump. I would only say that we in Ghana, having tried everything else, have finally reached a consensus that a multi-party system of governance works best for us. The greatest challenge for us in Ghana and for the entire continent remains the creation of sustainable jobs. Our young people must see and feel the dividends of the democratic system of governance. In the 1 year that I've had the privilege of leading my country, I've tried to be honest with the people of Ghana. We are nowhere near where we should be and where we all want to be. But there is a feeling we're all in this together, and we shall get out and prosper together. It is important that we make an honest assessment of ourselves and our situation on the continent. I wonder, for example, whatever happened to the peer review mechanism. There might be 54 countries, and we might resent being lumped together for the wrong reasons, but there are ties that bind us together as Africans. We have good reasons to be proud of who we are and the beautiful continent that is ours. Today, the People's Republic of China calls itself and is regarded as a world power. Over 30 years ago, Princeton University, one of America's most prestigious Ivy League universities, offered a course in Mandarin, which for years had virtually no takers. Today, there is standing room only. And it is not because the course is any easier. It is because the position of China has changed. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was nowhere near where it is today. China does not ask for respect now. She does not need to. If we work at it, if we stop being beggars, govern ourselves intelligently and honestly in freedom, and spend Africa's monies inside the continent, Africa would not need to ask for respect for anyone. We don't need to ask for respect from anyone. We should get the respect we deserve. We have a responsibility to take care of our environment. We have the most spectacular natural surroundings, grandest rivers and mountains. We have the minerals that the world would kill for. We have a dynamic and young population. We bring humanity alive. Let us make this continent the prosperous and joyful place it should be. Friends, we do not have to look far back into history to see the stable period of constitutional government and intelligent management of the economy leads to prosperity. Brazil has shown us that these are not theoretical arguments. In the last 2.5 decades, Brazil has transformed her economy and the lives of her people, lifting some 30 million people out of poverty during the last decade alone. We in Africa can identify with Brazil and we can learn lessons from them. I believe in Africa's immense potential for greatness. I believe the stable democracies in Africa can help unleash energies to drive the transformation of the continent. There is a lot of talk that this will be the Asian century, the Chinese century. But take it from me, the 21st century holds excellent prospects for Africa. This can be Africa's century. We can claim it if we believe in ourselves. Everybody has accepted democracy as the preferred mode of governance. There are those who would rather have authoritarian rule because they claim Africa is underdeveloped and democracy is cumbersome and we need to get things done in a hurry. We still have work to do to convince such people that we are all safer under democracies. The man who is regarded as the doyen of Ghanaian politics and who led the first political party to fight for Ghanaian independence and freedom, Joseph Boakai Dankwa of most blessed memory, articulated clearly over 50 years ago, at the height of the Cold War, the policy which continues to guide us. And I quote, "Our policy is to liberate the energies of the people for the growth of a property-owning democracy in this land, with right to life, freedom, and justice as the principles to which the government and laws of the land should be dedicated in order specifically to enrich life, property, and liberty of each and every citizen," unquote. It has taken us this long for consensus to emerge in Ghana that the democratic form of governance is preferable and the rapid growth of the private sector in an open market is the better route to prosperity of our nation. There was a time in Africa when most countries were one-party states and everybody had to belong to that party. Some decades ago, all the radio and television stations and newspapers were exclusively owned by the government. If you wanted to hear any voice in opposition, you'd probably have to tune into a foreign radio station like the BBC. Most of our youth are unaware that a culture of silence used to reign in most parts of the continent. We're not quite there yet, but yet there is far more self-confidence amongst Africans today than there has been since the very early days of freedom. Self-freedom and the principles of democratic accountability are strengthening the determination of Africans to build a new Africa that is neither pawn nor victim of the world order. When I started thinking about the subject matter of our gathering, it struck me how interesting it was that the words Africa and Africans appear to have more resonance outside the continent than inside. When we're home here on our continent, it seems very important to assert that we are Ghanaians, Kenyans, Zambians, Swazis, Senegalese, South Africans, and of course that we are Nigerians. We do not want anybody to forget that there are 54 sovereign nations on the continent with different cultures, languages, and rates of development. We would admit to some regional cohesion and ascribe certain characteristics to these regional groupings. The East Africans would insist, for example, that the West Africans are loud, and the West Africans would say that the Central Africans are violent. Some people claim they can tell where someone comes from simply by the shape of a forehead. Then there are the divisions that are linked to our colonial experiences. The Anglophones claim an affinity between each other, no matter how distant their countries might be, that they cannot find with their Francophone neighbors. But then We might be both Anglophone and West African, but we know, do we not, that Ghana is and Ghanaians are very different from Nigerian and Nigerians. Then we find ourselves outside the continent, and we discover that to the outside world, we are simply Africans. There we find that the American president would use the same colorful adjective to describe all 54 countries on the continent. The lesson is clear. Our destinies are inextricably linked with each other, and it is not only those of us on the continent, but this will include the Africans